So welcome to the LCP Digital Learning Channel. Today is a special training that we're going to be doing partially on the video and partially with the facilitator in the room to help walk you through some of the expectations, the scenarios that might come up with one-to-one iPads in the classroom this coming year.
Obviously, we've got a lot of adjustments going to one-to-one, so we wanted to make sure that y'all have the best chance of making that successful. And so we're going to go through some things, and hopefully that's going to help you out. As always, if you ever have questions or anything at all, you can always email help@lcisd.net and also contact your campus level digital learning specialist.
All right, so the first thing we want to talk about is what do we do if an iPad has an issue? And the first thing we always do is
turn it off, turn it back on again.
So work that yellow card, turn it off, turn it back on again, reset some of the apps, things like that. So instead of us doing this on the camera, we want you to have some time to play with this. So we're going to pause the video right here, and the person facilitate this is going to go through 2-button reset, how to shut down apps, how to reinstall, things that you might need to talk about right now. So we'll pause and see you in a minute.
Now let's talk about the difference between an incident report and also a discipline report. So basically we have two different scenarios that we're gonna have to move forward with this year. If it is an incident report, something falls off a desk, something gets broken in a backpack, some of those things, then that's obviously gonna be an incident report. If it's disciplinary, I'm swinging, throwing iPads, if I am being destructive with it, anything like that, then we move into a discipline type scenario. Also with the discipline scenario, we're looking at kids not showing up with things charged, ready to go, things like that. So if that becomes a habit for them and they are kind of working the system to make sure that they didn't have to do work with the iPad, or that they are trying to kind of sabotage what's going on, then obviously that moves into a disciplinary situation as well. So we'd like for y'all to kind of discuss some of those scenarios and kind of go through some things and kind of think of what are some things in the classroom that a kid might have that's an accident versus something that they're doing on purpose to sabotage.
All right, so we're going to pause that video and we'll see you back in just a minute. Okay, so the next thing that we want to make sure that you've had some time to go through is the SAIL, which stands for School-Wide Application of iPads for Learning. And this is kind of our overreaching expectations for the entire district on what is it going to look like and what are the expectations with how we treat the technology in the classroom. Go ahead.
This is going to be very helpful because you're going to obviously have parents. They're going to ask a lot of questions. We're going to provide that resource in a web page for you to where you can share out, and also is going to help educate you so you can answer those questions. Don't feel like you have to answer every question that a parent brings to you. If there's something you don't know, it's always best to do a little research, contact us, and we can give you those right answers.
So we're going to put a QR code right here that if you want to scan, it's going to send you to this website. And so just a few things I want to point out, and then we're going to give you time to look through it and talk about it with your facilitator. So first thing, now that this QR code has sent you there, we're on this introduction to SAIL. This is going to talk about the device, the program, and our expectations. And on the right-hand side, you're going to see the parent FAQ. So this is something that's going to be good for you to know about as they ask some questions, the contract that will be signed, the parent and guardian contract, and some resources, and then also the link to the incident report if something happens. So we're going to give the facilitator and you some time to look through this website, ask some questions, and really talk about what this is going to look like in the classroom.
So what we're going to talk about now is kind of norms. And we've talked about this in different ways. This is how you start your classroom. This are some things that you're going to get established to start the year so that you'll be successful in implementing all the iPads into the classroom. So first of all, what are we going to do with these on holidays, weekends, things like that? In an elementary setting, we'll want to obviously have the ability to lock those up, have them charged, have them organized, make sure they're all there, those things. Over holidays, same situation. Make sure they're in a secure area to where if somebody did get into the schools, they're not able to take them easily. And on a secondary campus, what that looks like is those kids are taking those home. So they need to make sure that when they get those home, they're in a safe place at home. So encourage that. Also, we want them to charge those every night so that they'll be well prepared for everything that the next day brings. So that's kind of what that looks like. We really want to make sure that they have the best chance to be used. So the most important parts are, again, charging and making sure apps are updated. So they can update, app updates will go through overnight automatically. There's nothing that you have to do on your end to make sure that the app updates.
And then also you want to think about, just like you set up your behavior expectations with running, walking, where do you turn things in? So how are they going to be entering and leaving the classroom with these iPads? Are they going to be holding them on their chest in elementary? So just setting some of those norms, just like the norms of how to walk in the hallways. How do I treat this iPad? It's a valuable learning tool, so we need to treat it that way. This is going to look different in every classroom, so this is something you're going to want to think about, is what does it look like and sound like when the kids are carrying those iPads in between the different classes?
And as far as going home for secondary, there's some expectations there. We're going to give you an opportunity to look at those. They are in the sale documentation, so everything's set up for you to where you can be successful.
And then let's also think about charging. So like Matt said, in the elementary classroom, we want to think about a strategic way that these iPads can be charged. And then during the day, if some of the kids' iPads are low, what's that going to look like? And then in high school, if they show up without an iPad being charged, it might be smart to have somewhere in the room that the kid can go and still be able to work and be plugged in. So it's kind of like, you know, if you want a stand up and work desk, you could also have a stand up and work and charge desk.
Also, within Apple Classroom that you'll learn more about, you'll actually be able to see if the battery life, I believe it drops below 15%, it'll actually notify you on Apple Classroom that their iPad's running low.
And then again, just like with any behavior expectations, setting those expectations for middle school and high school on what it looks like to take it home. What are the expectations for bringing it? Just like a pencil, just like a book. If they don't show up, you need to have some scenarios set up of what happens if they don't show up, just like if they didn't show up with their book or their supplies. And again, that's going to look different in every classroom. So what we'd like to do is give you guys time to pause and talk about with the facilitator some expectations that you might want to set in your classroom, how you're going to set those things, and then what is it going to look like for each individual teachers.
All right, so now let's talk about some tips on to help you with the focus and the flow in your classroom. First of all, how do we get apps? So we're going to go to our App Store.
Now, do we use the iTunes App Store, Matt, or do we have a special App Store just for classrooms?
Oh my gosh, Aaron, I almost used the wrong thing.
Hey!
So yes, we use self-service. These are all vetted apps. There's over 500 apps that are available for you to use. They're all educational content-based apps. Our students don't have access to a traditional app store, which is a great way to make this an educational tool as opposed to just another thing to consume video on, right?
So no Netflix, no Hulu,
nope.
Things like that.
All that stuff is off. So we're going to go to self-service. And within self-service, I have, again, over 500 apps. So I can search through and scroll through those 500 apps, or I can make it easy. If it's an app that I know specifically that I want, I can touch search. Say that I want to download Classroom. So here's Google Classroom. Here's also our Apple Classroom. So that's there. It's ready to go. All I have to do is hit install next to that, and it's going to install it to the iPad. Same exact process for the kids. So if you see that there's an app that you would like to use in your classroom and it's not in self-service, you can simply email help with a link to that app, and we can vet that and get it added into self-service. We are getting to a point where we can basically get those in almost same day or within 24 hours, depending on how busy everything else is going within the App Store. But they're getting to us pretty quickly now, so we can get those added for you. The other thing that's really nice, I'm going to get out of that, I can hit these three dots up in the top left-hand corner, and I have categories. So I can actually swipe through and look at categories. So if there's something like, I'm really wanting some creation tools and something to create in the classroom, I actually have an app category called Creation Tools. So I can go to that, and here's all these apps that are all creation-based apps. So it's a really great thing to where if you're like, hey, I want to try something new, This is a great way to kind of go through and look at all the different apps that we have available in self-service.
And one thing to keep in mind is that once an app has been added to a student's iPad, they do not have the ability to delete those. So again, we want to set those expectations that students aren't just going into self-service and downloading all the apps that they want to use and play with. This is an educational tool. And so we want to kind of have that conversation when we pause in a minute about which apps do you think you want to download pretty much immediately. And for me, if I'm in the classroom, I'm going with Keynote, Numbers, Apple Classroom, Google Classroom, maybe Clips. So, for example, do I want to wait and download an app right before I'm ready to use it in the classroom?
Absolutely not. What you'd want to do is actually plan ahead. If you know that you're going to use a specific app that the kids don't have downloaded yet, do that a couple of days in advance. And you might even set up a schedule to where maybe every Monday you know what apps you're going to use that week. Maybe Monday's your app download day. So you go get everything set up, and then those kids have those apps ready to roll.
Awesome. And so another thing that we want to talk about is something really that's going to help with the flow, and that's AirDrop.
All right, so AirDrop. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. We can AirDrop files, pictures, all of these things amongst one another. But also the bad part is that you can AirDrop pictures, photos, videos, and things to one another. So a great way to get the year started is to set some standards, some norms on how AirDrop needs to be used. So a few tips for that. We swipe from the top right corner and then a long press in the box, and we see that we have AirDrop. Right now mine says contacts only. When I press that again, I have receiving off, contacts only, and everyone. What I would suggest is in your classroom is basically you have AirDrop zones or AirDrop times. So most of the time it's going to be receiving off. That way the kid's not open to receive something from another kid that might be acting inappropriately. So that would make it to where they wouldn't even receive that. The beautiful thing about the way we've got the iPad set up is even though the AirDrop is off, they are still able to receive AirDrops from you, the teacher. So that's a great situation to where you can have AirDrop off and they'd still be able to receive it from you. The other part is when they're ready to AirDrop, everybody can swipe down, turn on AirDrop, share what they need to share, and then go right back and turn receiving off. You're still going to be able to AirDrop them as a teacher, but it's going to keep them from AirDropping to one another.
So a good conversation to have about that is just like with anything else. There's writing notes. If I pass the note to you, you have the option to not accept it. So just like AirDrop, if I'm messing around the classroom and I'm sending you a funny picture, you have the option to decline that. So if they accept that AirDrop and they don't know who it's from, that's kind of one of those digital citizenship conversations we should be having at the beginning of the year about when is it okay to accept things if you don't know what they are.
Exactly. Excellent points.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk about Apple Classroom and also Google Classroom. They're two completely different things. Apple Classroom is going to really allow you to facilitate your iPads in your classroom, see screens, share work, do a lot of really nice management type tools. And then Google Classroom is still Google Classroom. It's a great place to have your classroom organized, where to turn in work, to post announcements, do all the things that Google Classroom does. So we're going to give you some time to kind of walk through that with your facilitator and kind of look at what does Apple Classroom mean to me in my classroom, and then also what does Google Classroom mean to me and how those two things are balanced.
So your DLSs on your campuses, they're going to have some time once the year starts to really work with you hand in hand to how to use Apple Classroom during the flow of your day. But also we have some great videos already set up on how to share the screen using Apple Classroom. It's a great way to share and show work on your television without having to change AirPlay. So if you'd like the link to those videos, don't forget that we have the url.lcisd.net/digital learning, which looks like this. This is where all of the resources that Matt and I have made for training videos are living, and there's also videos specifically for Apple Classroom.
What we want to do is provide you with the best opportunity to use these in your classroom. We want to make sure that, the iPad's not locked all the time. Kids start to kind of resent using the iPads because they're locked. So we really want to aid in the focus and flow of your classroom using Apple Classroom and Google Classroom, as opposed to locking things down and shutting things down. It's just like anything else we do. We get those good behaviors going, and this is no different than that. It's going to really make your classroom a wonderful place.
So we're going to pause right here. This is a time for you to talk with your facilitator about how to get apps, how to use AirDrop, and then the difference between Apple Classroom and Google Classroom, knowing that some more trainings for Apple Classroom and Google Classroom will be coming when school starts. So now we want to talk about what is the first week going to look like? What are some good things to kind of start working on right off the bat when these kids have the iPads in their hands?
They're going to have 32 gig iPads, so not quite as big as what they've had in the past when they were shared, but we don't anticipate any issues with that. But at the same time, it's still good to be organized and have things saved in the right places. One, for the kids to be able to find it when they need to turn it in, or if it's a continuing learning, to basically go find it and be able to pull it in again and use it, something that they created again in a future project. So we're going to allow your facilitators to talk to you about files and saving things in files, how to keep those organized on the iPad. It's somewhat new as a feature, and so it's a really great way to keep your iPads organized, keep everything where you can find it.
So we're going to pause right here, and the facilitator is going to walk you through how to add files. For example, Keynote, you could have ELAR, Math, Science, but also how to organize those apps on your iPad to make it a little bit more fluid. So let's pause right here and give you guys some time to work on that.
All right, so a great way to use this new technology that every kid's going to have is to introduce yourself. So you can use Keynote to where basically they can tell you what they did this summer, what their likes, dislikes, all those things that we like to get at the first of the year. We can gather all of that now through something like Keynote, to where we can model that for them to where they get used to creating and not necessarily consuming all the time.
So if you need some resources and aren't comfortable with Keynote, again, url.lcisd.net/digital learning has some videos already ready that you could play with the kids to teach them some of those tools. So we're teaching them the tools while they also get to kind of talk about themselves and introduce themselves in the classroom. What would be another idea they could use, Matt?
We really like Clips a lot. It's a great app. As kids get more ingrained into a video culture world, we know that they're going to have to interview for jobs, submit digital portfolios that might include videos. So if we can get them to where they're utilizing these efficiently and effectively, then we're helping them get jobs in the future. So Clips is a great way to step into that. With Clips, we can really gather a lot of information in very small increments and then make a video out of that. So another really great way to capture what those kids did over the summer, their likes, dislikes, all of those good things, is by using a video like Clips.
Awesome. And then my favorite app that you guys know is Numbers. I live and breathe Numbers from the teacher side, but this year I can't wait for students to be able to use this as a digital portfolio. How they can make a Numbers template, and then each tab could be notes of the day, could be pictures of handouts. So as you're teaching things, the kids can start organizing that entire day into one Numbers template.
Absolutely. Numbers is kind of saving the world one tab at a time, and Aaron's really done a good job. It's great videos on the Digital Learning channel that can definitely help you and your students create some really amazing work.
And then speaking of space, what are we going to do about photos, Matt?
So photos, obviously the photos and videos are going to take up a lot of space on iPads, and that's generally the first culprit when we see a full iPad. It's because those kids have taken tons and tons of videos and photos. So the best way to organize those is using Google Photos. With Google Photos, it's an app you can download from self-service. Once you get it downloaded to your iPad, when you download Google Photos, you're going to want to choose between two different deals. One is Original. Original we don't want to use. Original is going to be full on, full resolution, everything, but it also has a limit on how much it will store. If you go and you choose the other option, which is the free unlimited storage, the resolution might be slightly less, but it's still going to be wonderful for all of us, but it provides unlimited storage. So you can have all those pictures, all those things backed up in Google Photos, and then you have the ability to delete those directly off the iPad to where they're not taking up all of the 32 gigs on the iPads that the students have.
And that's great because the Google Photos is going to be the same account that the kids are using for Google Drive, Google Docs. All of those Google things are now going to be integrated as one. So when they're building things in Google, they have access to all those photos as well.
Absolutely. It's just a great solution, provides a lot of storage, and it's actually good for those of you that have personal devices that have they're full of photos. Google Photos is a great option for you as well.
So let's pause the video right here and let the facilitator answer some questions and walk you through some of the situations that you might run into with some of these new apps that you're going to be showing the kids and what you could be doing in the classroom to introduce yourselves.
All right, so as a wrap up, we want to know, what do you think great digital learning looks like? We have some resources for you to help you. They're located right here. We really want to provide you with every tool that we possibly can to make you successful and also make your students successful. So again, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to your digital learning specialist on each campus. You can also always email help@lcisd.net and we'll show up, really help out. We love to co-teach. We love to be in your classrooms and really help you be successful.
So this is going to be a time that we're going to finish the video. The facilitator is going to share these resources with you. I want you guys to be talking about what does good technology look like in the classroom. So videos all day? Probably not.
Probably not.
Creation versus consumption? Great conversation. So you guys are the expert in the room. We're just going to be helping you integrate this iPad in a fluid, easy way in the classroom.
And also, don't forget, we really want to implement great digital citizenship as we implement so much technology into the classrooms. We really want these kids to make smart choices and understand how their digital footprint could be used.
And don't forget, coming year, everyone's going to have a DLS on their campus. That is your #1 go-to person for help with curriculum and how to integrate this iPad in a meaningful way in the classroom. Thanks.